Hello everyone, it's Mike Regan here with another Regan rant for February, what day is it? Today is the 19th of 2010. And I want to talk a little bit about Smackdown vs. Raw 2011. Well, nothing officially has been announced, obviously, or I would be talking about that. But what was reported and what was, I guess, announced was that the CEO of THQ, Brian Farrell, did an interview with IGN. And in that interview, he basically discusses the WWE franchise and what it means for THQ. It's a pretty big franchise for them. It makes a lot of money every year. And basically, they're looking at E3 2011 for their big unveil. Well, that's interesting. Partly because Gaming Ring's going to be there, but what's interesting is that for me, and I probably have a unique perspective because I played pretty much every version of SmackDown vs. Raw 2010, from the PlayStation 2 all the way up to the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and the Wii. And one of the criticisms that I've seen on the forums and I've heard in other conversations that the PlayStation 2 version of the game is holding back the current generation systems, meaning the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. Well, and I in some regards I can recognize the argument. I can recognize that there is some case to be made there. And I always explained it is that, let's face it, there are still a lot of people who have PlayStation 2 consoles. I mean, there are still people who haven't taken the jump to the next generation. Now, I don't have exact numbers, but I would imagine that there is a substantial portion of the video game audience as a whole who have not yet upgraded to the Wii or the 360 or the PS3. And that audience is one of the main reasons why SmackDown vs. Raw, the series, continues on that platform. But at some point, and I was looking at the 2010 for the PlayStation 2 when I was doing screens and videos for it, and it was, when is enough enough? When do they cut that platform and move on to the next generation systems? Now, there have been reports, and again, none of this has been substantiated by THQ from what I know, that this year, 2011, they're going to go with a completely brand new engine. And if you look at what THQ and Ukes have done with the UFC series, and if you can see that they are talented developers. And really the only thing that's holding them back this generation for the wrestling games is the engine. I mean, it's basically been the same wrestling game engine since the beginning. Yes, there have been substantial improvements. Yes, there have been major overhaul. All the animations are new, but for the most part, it's the engine that has there's just something there there's always something that somebody's going to complain about. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this year, 2011, will be the very first year that THQ decides not to go with a PlayStation 2 version SKU. Which is, it's sad in a way, because if you think about it, if the PlayStation 2 is the one console that you can play every single SmackDown game in the series. I mean, you can still play on the PlayStation 2, you can still play the first and second SmackDown games if you want to, which I do. But it's time to move on. I mean, there's so many things that wrestling game is capable of doing, and they just can't, because they're held back because of of having to port it over to the PlayStation 2. And I mean, it would be just. I mean, I think one of the main reasons why they're going with they went with one developer and one SKU across the different consoles was because of cost. I mean, it was more cost beneficial for them to just release one version of the game and port it over to each of the systems. And but if you look at the 2010 graphically, it's a great looking game. I mean, it does justice to the engine. I mean, but you know, it's getting there. I mean, there are some points in the game where you can see, you know, the PlayStation 2 just isn't enough hardware to really do that game justice, I think. So yeah, so look forward to that. SmackDown versus Raw 2011, coming E3 2010, and looking forward to seeing what the big feature is. I mean, I think one of the big features this year hopefully is the online. I think, you know, they basically use the same online platform for the past several games. They started, you know, going online with SmackDown games, and it's time for, you know, a change. I mean, you know, they have this huge community out here that's developing content, which is great content. Don't get me wrong, but you know, they need to focus on the online play for one, making that a rock solid experience. And I know a lot of people have been complaining about the online play with the lag for 2010, and so let's hope they fix that. Let's hope that you know, they actually lift the restrictions off of some of that created content. I mean, it's